Hi, I'm Joe Fagan, and welcome to the premiere of Discover West Orange. This monthly program, sponsored by the Downtown West Orange Alliance, is dedicated to raising awareness and preserving our rich local history. It would be only fitting to begin our show with the story of one local historian whose vision of long ago has inspired me over the years and deserves mention, perhaps indirectly making this program possible. Shortly after the turn of the last century, all the Oranges participated in a spectacular week-long celebration that in 1907 was known as the Centennial Celebration of the Oranges. It commemorated the first town meeting of Orange in 1807, from which all the Oranges eventually spawned. A Centennial Committee headed by local author and historian David L. Pearson had an acute vision and sense of purpose. Pearson realized it was important not only to celebrate, but also preserve the history of the Oranges by passing it forward. He understood their mission in 1907 was not just about 1907. Pearson wanted to leave a record to help us discover and understand his place and time. Pearson's objective is perhaps best understood by a brief paraphrasing of the poem To the Unborn Peoples, written by Ellen Gates in 1907. This poem appeared in the official program of the Centennial Celebration in 1907 and is now read here by Molly Wachtel.
Ye peoples of the future years, we you salute. To you we fling a greeting glad. While yet we cling to earth's old rim, we think of you, hail, hail. Ye peoples yet unborn, we leave you all that love bequeaths. Above our dust your songs will swell. Hail, hail, and then farewell, farewell.
Thank you, Molly. This poem has inspired me over a century later to find my role in Pearson's 1907 vision by looking to preserve our local history right here in West Orange. History is like meeting an old friend who knows who we are, tells us what we want to hear, and leaves to visit another day, politely reminding us of all the best and worst of all our potential and constantly inspiring us to what we can and should be. Some may say history is dead, but it is alive and well, and I can feel its beating pulse. So as we begin 2014, I would like to sincerely wish everyone in our viewing audience a happy old year as we forge forward and turn the pages of history together as we proudly discover West Orange. Today's show is dedicated to the memory of the many former West Orange residents who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Their names are forever inscribed at Veterans Plaza and War Memorial Park at Town Hall in West Orange, and sometimes easy to forget or overlook the price they so dearly paid. I made it a habit several years ago, anytime I saw a uniformed member of our armed forces, to personally thank them and shake their hand. This idea is not uniquely my own and doesn't make me special or different. It's just an easy way to express gratitude rightfully due the young men and women who serve our country. However, the most moving and unforgettable experience regarding this practice left an indelible mark seared into my mind. It truly was a very poignant reminder of the sacrifice that our veterans make every day. A few years back, I had just arrived in the United States after a 12-hour flight from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I landed in Atlanta to catch a connecting flight back home to New Jersey. For me, returning stateside from a foreign country always gives me a heightened sense of appreciation for our own country. While waiting for my flight in Atlanta, I noticed there was a serviceman from the U.S. Army who was on my flight back to Newark. I made my way over to him to give him my customary handshake and thank you, I simply did what I have done countless times before and said, "Thank you for our service to our country." He looked me in the eye with a very firm handshake and tears welling up in his eyes and responded, "Thank you, sir," with the same tone of voice as if he was responding to his commanding officer. I thought to myself it probably was a bit of an overreaction on his part, but simply assumed he was just grateful. A little later, we sat and waited for our flight to board. I noticed that airline personnel seemed to be giving this individual somewhat of special treatment. He was even escorted out onto the tarmac and given what seemed to be a private tour of the aircraft. I didn't pay much attention and just assumed it was a courtesy afforded military personnel. The story would have ended there, and I probably would have never given it a second thought. But upon landing in Newark, as we were taxiing to the terminal, it suddenly all made sense with an announcement from the captain. He said there was a special guest aboard our flight. The captain explained that it was Sergeant Jones. He was the same serviceman I thanked in Atlanta before our flight left. I just didn't know his name. The captain further stated that Sergeant Jones was returning from Iraq. However, his homecoming was bittersweet. Sergeant Jones and his brother were both actually coming home from Iraq. Sergeant Jones was in first class, and his brother was in the cargo hold of our airplane in a cardboard box. I then realized why Sergeant Jones fought back tears when I told him thank you for your service to our country back in the Atlanta airport. His brother had made the ultimate sacrifice in the call to duty. There was a stunned silence among the passengers as the captain continued. He requested that everyone remain seated so that Sergeant Jones can be the first one off the airplane. Normally, once airplanes I have been on approached the gate, there was a mad scramble to leave. Not this time. No one wanted to move before Sergeant Jones did. In fact, there was a somewhat eerie but appropriate round of applause in honor and respect as Sergeant Jones left. As everyone subsequently exited the plane, you could hear a pin drop. I was seated in the window over the wing, and I could see Sergeant Jones outside of the aircraft as I waited. He was standing at the base of a portable conveyor belt that had been placed into the cargo hold. A cardboard box marked "Handle with extreme care" then came into sight as it slowly descended from the aircraft. I really fought to hold back tears as I saw Sergeant Jones saluting his brother, a fallen comrade, and overseeing the operation as he was transferred to a waiting cargo carrier. For me, it was perhaps one of the single saddest and heart-wrenching sights I had ever seen. Witnessing this really hit home for me. It sometimes becomes so easy to forget that in our normal daily lives, we are insulated from the horrors of war. Ironically, one of the reasons we are so well protected is because of people like Sergeant Jones and his brother. They live and die to protect us and keep us safe. For me, it was a harsh and cruel reminder of the ultimate sacrifice paid by all of those who serve our country. West Orange is a community not immune to those town residents who have also paid the same ultimate sacrifice. Throughout history, West Orange residents have always answered the call to duty in the service of our country. Although most returned home, many made their final journey from West Orange to give their life on a battlefield and never came back. Their names are forever remembered and inscribed in an often overlooked permanent memorial right in the shadow of Town Hall on Main Street. When we return from the break, we will be joined in studio by our first guest to discuss the important history of West Orange's War Memorial Park. We'll be back in a moment. If anyone would like to contact the show, you can do so online. Here is my email address. It's very simple to remember, Joseph Fagan, my name, at westorangehistory.com. Or if you prefer the old-fashioned way, you can contact me via the Downtown West Orange Alliance at 66 Main Street in West Orange, and of course that's the same address as West Orange Town Hall. War Memorial Park, as is officially known, actually predates current-day West Orange Town Hall with a history all its own. Town Hall sits on an oddly shaped plot of land whose boundaries have undergone several changes over the years. Originally on this land sat the Hartenberg estate to about 1917. In the days following World War I, the house was razed and some trees were planted to honor West Orange boys who lost their lives during the war. Inside Town Hall today, you can see a drawing documenting the trees and the names that were planted. Soon after, a granite memorial was erected at the southern tip of the land and inscribed with the names of the West Orange veterans who were killed during World War I, it was officially dedicated as War Memorial Park on July 4th, 1920, as it is still known today. Subsequent memorials have since been added for World War II, Korea, Vietnam. All the West Orange servicemen killed in action are now inscribed there. Joining us in studio is Gary Engler. Gary is a West Orange resident and himself a Vietnam veteran who has served for the chairman of the Commission of Military and Veteran Affairs in West Orange. Gary has also been responsible for organizing the annual Memorial Day ceremony at Town Hall in West Orange since its inception in 1999. In my opinion, no one has done more for helping to honor the memory of our West Orange veterans than Gary. Largely in part because of his unselfish commitment, West Orange holds the proud distinction of being New Jersey's most decorated community. Gary, welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
As I mentioned, West Orange War Memorial Park on Main Street was rededicated on May 31st, 1999, and it was recently restored, and you'll tell us about that in a moment. First, I'd like to show a slide here from the 1920s to kind of go back to the beginning of what we're talking about. And this postcard view here shows center to the right the original granite memorial that was on West Orange Main Street. And for perspective, that's we're looking at Main Street towards the corner of current-day Mount Pleasant Avenue and White Street. And this is what it looked like before the memorial was built. This is a picture from about 1900. That house there, I believe, is the Hartenberg estate, and that was torn down about 1917. And that road to the left is Fairmont Avenue. In later days was known as Municipal Plaza, and today that road does not exist. And a current-day view, you'll see why that road does not exist, because it's the West Orange Police Headquarters that was built opened in 1994. And Gary, memorials have since been added to War Memorial Park, and they include what wars?
Well, initially, of course, the first of the memorials that existed in this space was to those who served in World War I, or at that time known as the Great War. And the names of 28 West Orange veterans who were killed in action are inscribed therein. Perhaps in an exercise in naivete and perhaps wishful thinking, the prevailing thought at the time was that a cataclysm such as this was never going to happen again. Of consequence, there are at least 3 separate areas where memorials to those 28 exist. One on the plaque and the monument at the War Memorial
Now, we
Park.
discussed this in the past, too, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, when they signed that treaty ending the war. They really thought that this was going to be the war to end all wars.
Absolutely.
Never thinking that in 20-odd years they'd be back fighting almost the same enemy.
Absolutely.
Now, we have this medal here in front of us here, and viewers at home will see a close-up view. Now, this medal, we believe, you and I have discussed this, that this comes from the original ceremony of July 4th, 1920, when War Memorial Park was first dedicated. And even though on the front it says 1917, 1918, that's talking about the war. And on the back, it's very interesting because it says, it actually mentions West Orange with the town seal. And you mentioned to me, Gary, before that this couldn't have been done cheaply.
Oh, no. I mean, today, basically the Distinguished Service Medals for the state of New Jersey, which are unique and cast for a specific purpose, ordered in 5,000-piece lots. They run about $10, $12 a piece. Probably in a far smaller striking, 90 years ago, this was not a cheap process by any stretch of the imagination.
So the only thing that we were kind of unclear of is that we don't know if this was awarded posthumously or to an actual veteran of the war.
Be interesting. It would be interesting to know exactly what the purpose of this was. If it was issued to all veterans who had served in the Great War in the township, or to the next of kin of those who were killed in action. I wish we had some way of making that determination. But
Well, as most of my research goes, I stumble across things when I least expect.
it.
Now, this here is an artist's conception of a dedication that took place in front of Town Hall on May 30th, 1944. And this obviously isn't there today. Can you tell me a little bit about what this represents, Gary?
Well, as part of the overall patriotic fervor that existed during World War II, a determination was made at some point from the beginning of the war to 1943, I guess, that the township should endeavor to recognize everyone from the township who served in the conflict. And this peace obelisk that's in the center of this artist's rendering was supposed to be the focal point of this, and the panels that surround it basically have inscribed on them the names of the 3,000 plus West Orange residents who served in World War II.
So it's interesting, it's worth noting that, and these panels are in West Orange Town Hall, and these are not the ones that are killed during the war. These are the ones who served.
Yes.
And at current day War Memorial Park, the actual World War II memorial outside is the ones that were killed during the war.
As near as I can tell, what essentially occurred is that the project was rethought, and that was spurred on not only because of economic considerations, but because of the wishes of those who actually served. They're feeling that the true heroes of any conflict are those that we leave behind. So what essentially occurred is that a memorial was then constructed and installed in the park, honoring just those who were killed in action. The tablets, which included the 3,000 names of all of those who served, were then moved into Town Hall itself and hang at their present location. It is worth noting that those who were killed in action, whose names are on the bronze monument outside, are also noted in gold on the West Orange Honor Roll that's essentially in the first floor corridor outside the mayor's
So
office.
anyone on their next visit to Town Hall can make note of that and have a better context and understanding of what they are. And of course, there's fortunately very few names on the Korean War Memorial from West Orange. Now, these plaques were recently restored. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Sure. Age and weather basically affects bronze and stone, for that matter, and all of the monuments at War Memorial Park were definitely showing their age. They had developed a very deep green patina, which was also indicating deterioration of the metal itself. And we endeavored, using some funds that were on hand in trust of the VFW Post 376 from a prior project I was involved in, we decided to utilize those funds to basically restore everything and to like new condition, with the hope that it will endure for the ages. So of consequence, all the metal monument plates were sandblasted, polished, then refinished and coated in a lacquer that should have them endure indefinitely.
So 50 years from now, a town historian will be sitting here and not have to ask the question, how long will they last?
Right.
They should
we
be.
would hope.
We would hope. Now, there's also a Vietnam memorial there, and Gary, yourself, you're a Vietnam veteran. Fortunately, your name's not on there. One name on there, Robert Woods. The reason I mention his name is I grew up at 50 Moore Terrace. Our family moved there in 1958, and not the family before us, but the family before them. Robert Woods actually lived at 50 Moore Terrace. In addition to the memorials, Gary, there's also one there about the Purple Heart. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
The Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration issued by the armed services and federal government, and it basically is given for wounds received in combat by American military personnel. Of course, this encompasses wounds from the relatively minor to being killed in action. So there are a great many people in service to this nation that have received this, and it is a particular decoration that's coveted by a great many veterans.
Certainly, I think of all the awards, the Purple Heart is the one that has probably the most name recognition. Now, also at War Memorial Park, there is this piece of artillery that was added, and again, you and I discussed this in the past. The artillery itself as a weapon really had nothing to do, certainly, with West Orange history, but what does it represent?
Well, this is a World War II era anti-tank gun. These things have pretty much become out of favor because of their lack of mobility, and the idea that a tank moving on tracks can position itself a heck of a lot more quickly than repositioning that gun could. But I feel that it basically serves as a focal point and it brings people's interest to War Memorial Park. And to that extent, I think it's a worthwhile addition. It
certainly is a visual, and hopefully many town residents who have passed that way before and not really known what was there, hopefully now have a deeper understanding of certainly War Memorial Park, but more aware of the many veterans from West Orange who unfortunately never made it home. Well, thank you very much Gary for joining us today in studio, and certainly thank you for your service to our country. Gary, it's good talking with you, and good luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Brill. I'm the Executive Director with the Downtown Alliance. We're very excited to sponsor Joe Fagan's TV show, Discover West Orange. We hope that you'll find something interesting in the show and want to check it out for yourself downtown. While you're there, we hope you enjoy some coffee or a store that interests you, and come back again real soon.
During World War II, the battleship USS Massachusetts, BB-59, is credited with firing the first naval shot of World War II. Specifically, the first American 16-inch projectile of the war. Coincidentally, the Massachusetts also fired the last naval shot of World War II. The first shot came from Turret 1 on November 8, 1942, when she engaged the Vichy French battleship Jean Bart in a gun duel as it approached Casablanca in North Africa. By the end of the day, the Massachusetts had fired 786 of the 800 rounds she held from her 16-inch guns, expelling 98% of her ammunition. In the process, she not only sank the Jean Bart, but contributed to the sinking of 5 other enemy ships. On that fateful day, 2 West Orange boys, only 21 years old, were part of her crew and bore witness to history. One was the late Harry McFadden, who graduated West Orange High School in 1939. He was a friend of my father and served as his best man when he married my mother in 1955. The other sailor that day was Elmer Sonny Ciamillo. Amazingly, he was stationed in Turret 1 on the Massachusetts and was part of that crew that fired the first shot of World War II. Sonny may have been a witness to history, but his unbelievable story doesn't end there. In fact, it's only the beginning to an absolute incredible journey for a young man from West Orange. After North Africa by late November 1942, the Massachusetts had returned stateside to Boston. Once in port, sailors were given liberty before the ship was reassigned to the South Pacific. In Boston, Sonny was randomly chosen to shore patrol duty, which is the Navy's version of military police. On November 28, 1942, Sonny was present at the deadly Coconut Grove nightclub fire. This was the scene of the deadliest nightclub fire in American history, and 492 people were killed. Sonny personally helped carry many of the bodies from the smoldering ruins, and himself was injured in the process. Unknown to him at the time, but one of the individuals he removed from the nightclub was Buck Jones, who was a very famous movie actor who had once starred with John Wayne. Jones died 2 days later from his injuries. When the Massachusetts set sail for the South Pacific, Sonny was in sickbay recovering from his injuries. After some time in the South Pacific, Sonny volunteered to transfer with many of his shipmates from the battleship Massachusetts to the aircraft carrier USS Midway. Soon after arriving on the Midway in early October 1944, the ship's name was changed to St. Lo to confuse the enemy and become part of a large task force known as Taffy 3. At dawn on October 25, 1944, Taffy 3 became engaged in a fight for their life against Japanese warships at close range. Before reporting to his battle station on the flight deck, Sonny secured $200 in his locker and hastily stuck a spoon in his pocket from a cup of coffee he was drinking. Inadvertently, the spoon somehow lodged in the pocket behind the clasp of his lucky golf pin, which he was also wearing, as he manned the 5-inch gun topside. No one was prepared for what would happen next in a monumental event in World War II history. Joining us in studio to talk more about, please welcome to the program, Sonny Ciamillo. Sonny, welcome to the program. I mentioned Harry McFadden, and before we begin, I just want to show a picture of the other boy from West Orange. And this is a picture of Harry McFadden, and Harry, as I mentioned, was a friend of my father's. And this picture was taken in 1941 when him, Philip Schoen, and maybe another guy or two, they had just come back from Eagle Rock, from Florida, and came to Eagle Rock in West Orange. Here's a picture of Sonny, of yourself, when you served aboard the Massachusetts. Now, on November 8th, 1942, you were in Turret 1, and the Massachusetts fired the first salvo, the first shot of World War II. At that time, did you have any sense of history, or were you just doing your job?
Oh, just doing our duties aboard the ship.
Did you actually know at that moment that it was the first shot of World War II?
No.
And on that day, you fired almost 98% of your full complement. And again, it was just another day of at the office, so to speak, for you doing that, or?
Well, it was another day aboard the ship, and you had to do your duty to get these salvos going. And when we used to fire our salvos, we do it broadside, and all 9 of the guns went. We had 3 turrets with 3 guns in each one of them.
Now, was the Massachusetts hit at all during the battle?
Not in the Pacific. It was hit in the battle of when we took them into Africa, Casablanca.
At Casablanca.
At Casablanca. It was a hit between Turret 1 and Turret 2. And they still have the marking aboard the ship up in Fall River where it was hit.
And you were inside Turret 1 when that was
Turret 1.
When that was hit. Did you think
Right.
this is it, or was the armor? Were you confident in the armor to protect you?
No, we're very lucky. It all didn't explode. Its capacity, only part of it exploded.
It did what it was supposed to do. Now, of course, when you returned from North Africa in late November 1942, the Massachusetts is at Liberty in Boston. And on November 28th, 1942, you're at the Coconut Grove Fire. Now, the Coconut Grove Fire was the deadliest nightclub in American history. 492 people died. And it partly happened because existing fire codes were not enforced, and in part because of the fire, many reforms took place. Now, what do you remember about that night, being at the Coconut Grove?
Well, the Marine Sergeant and I was taking it to my home because we could do it in no time. He did in down in Virginia, but we didn't go there. We got picked for shore patrol. When we got shore patrol, we had a patrol all around there.
It was just a random selection?
Random selection, they picked them. And then what happened is we got word to go to Coconut Grove, Huntington, the major fire. And we went there, and we insist, carrying some bodies out and everything. But we did not know we carried Buck Jones, the movie actor. He was on a war bond drive. And we didn't know until we were in the Pacific when the captain and the Monsignor Moody took us on the veranda and explained to us that we carried Buck Jones out of the fire. And we didn't know nothing about it.
Now, I might mention that Buck Jones most people would not recognize the name, but he was a very famous movie actor of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and actually starred with John Wayne. Now, I also found a picture of outside of the Coconut Grove fire that day, and we can see the chaos and the panic in the crowd and everyone scrambling. And, you know, if you look here where the arrow is, I actually see a group of sailors, and some dressed as they might be shore patrol. Is this the scene as you remember it outside the Coconut Grove?
Well, I knew it was a big crowd, but not vaguely, because we were so busy assisting the fire department carrying these bodies out and helping them out.
You had no time to think. You were just simply reacting. I happened to be in Boston this past September, and we on the bus tour, we had gone by, and this is what that area looks like today. A stark difference, of course, from 1942. Now, when the Massachusetts returns to sea, you actually leave the Massachusetts in sick bay because you yourself were injured at the Coconut Grove fire.
Our legs, our trousers burnt from the fire, stepping down and so forth.
Now, in October 1944, the Massachusetts is, you had served on the Massachusetts in the South Pacific. You had gone through the Panama Canal. My father also had served in the Navy during World War II in the South Pacific, and he always had said it was a big thrill for him to go through the Panama Canal and see that. Now, were you on deck witnessing the procedure going through the Panama Canal?
Oh, yes.
And was it equally as thrilling for you to go through the Panama Canal?
It was amazing because the canal was 110 feet wide, and our ship was 108 feet, and we had an inch on each side to go through.
So it's safe to say it was a tight fit.
Tight fit.
I have the same thing every morning when I put my pants on. It's a tight fit too. Now, here's a slide I found from actually on the St. Lo quarters on the St. Lo. I neglected to mention that from the Massachusetts you transferred to the Midway. It's an escort carrier, and shortly after you transferred, the Midway changed its name to the St. Lo in honor of St. Lo in France that was captured after the D-Day landings, June 6, 1944. Now, you transferred to the St. Lo from the Massachusetts, and you mentioned to me in a prior discussion that the reason you did that, there were some buddies on the Massachusetts that were also willing to go to the St. Lo. And does this picture, the picture we saw of the guys in the quarters, does that look familiar to you? Is it possible that you might even be in that picture?
Possible.
It's possible. I also might mention that prior to going into the service, you were a caddy at the Essex County Country Club, and Mrs. Josephine Tomes gave you a good luck pin. And in fact, the good luck pin is actually on our set here.
Her initials are on the pin.
And PCT stands for actually
Primrose Chisel Toms.
That's her husband, actually. Primrose is her husband?
No, Primrose is her.
Oh, Primrose is her name. I'm sorry.
Primrose.
But you must have thought that the PCT stood for Please Carry This, because you had this with you throughout the entire war. Is that correct? Now, when you're on the St. Lo, it's October 1944, and you were below deck. You had secured $200 in your locker, I believe, and you were having a cup of coffee. You had your good luck pin on, and you were called to general quarters because you were under attack. And you took the spoon that was stirring your coffee and you kind of stuck it in your pocket. And that's the spoon that's on the set here today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that spoon, you didn't intend it. It kind of got stuck behind your good luck pin. And you went to general quarters, and that's, we can see, give you some perspective here. There's the golf pin and the spoon. And just so that you can see it, on the tip of the spoon, it actually has USN engraved on the end. And I might add, several years ago I was talking about this with you in your kitchen, and I asked you if you still had the spoon, and you just kind of stumbled over to the kitchen cabinet and you kept the spoon just in with the regular silverware among the other spoons. In fact, you even had a hard time finding it. Have you since put it in a safer place?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad
I
to hear.
put the two of them in
I'm glad to hear that. Now, you're summoned to general quarters on October 1944, and you're actually assigned to the 5-inch gun on the port side. And I might mention that the St. Lo had been under concentrated fire from Japanese ships closing at close range. So you had been in constant battle with them. And do you recognize this gun turret at all? Is that the one that you served in?
No, that wasn't in that one.
That one is similar to the one that
It's similar,
similar
yeah.
to the one that you served in. Well, shortly after 11 o'clock, one thing that the Navy had never experienced, and as I mentioned, you're aboard the St. Lo. This is the Battle of Samar, the center point most action of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, a fierce, fierce naval battle. It's described as the biggest naval battle in history, and suddenly, something that has never seen before, the first kamikaze pilot of World War II appears heading towards the ship. Now, obviously you didn't know it was a kamikaze pilot and what his intentions were. Did you see the plane coming in?
No, we didn't see it.
So you were firing, but you were not firing specifically at the plane?
It came. We were on the port, and the plane came in on the starboard side.
You did hear it, though?
And you could hear it and all that. You could hear the other guns on the starboard side shooting at the planes and all that.
Those were the 40 millimeter and the 20
40
millimeter
millimeters and the 20 millimeters.
anti-aircraft.
Anti.
Now, the plane comes in, hits the flight deck, penetrates the flight deck, goes below the deck, and subsequently explodes the magazine of the ship. It's a tremendous explosion. Now, I actually have a picture here of Yukio Saki, Lieutenant Yukio Saki. It's widely reported that he was the pilot that day who hit the St. Lo, certainly led the attack that day. We'll never know for sure if he was the actual one. But when he hits the St. Lo now, you're not only thrown into the water without a life vest, you fall approximately 80 to 125 feet into the ocean on your back.
On the back, right.
On your back. It's amazing just that you would survive such a fall. But now you're in the ocean without a life vest. You see the St. Lo ablaze. You're amidst burning fuel oil, other sailors. You had approximately 900 men aboard ship, and I think 142 were killed. But you actually see the St. Lo go down.
Right.
And it sank very, very quickly within a half hour. What are your thoughts about seeing the ship sink, if in fact you even have any recollection?
Well, we're wondering how many of our shipmates got off the ship or how many was down below deck. Yeah, I know quite a few of the engineers, they were down below deck.
When they were summoned to general quarters, their battle station would have been below deck.
Below deck.
Unlike you, who was
Right,
on top side.
deck. Right, and but that's what happened, and we don't know how many of them were killed. And then when we were picked up, we went on a hospital ship. Then we got transferred to Bremerton, Washington, to a hospital. Then they worked on us, and 14, I think it was 14 or 16, in that range, they sent us to Sun Valley, Idaho. They took over. That was a Navy hospital during the war.
And now your parents had only been notified that you were missing in action.
I was missing in action.
They had no idea, that you were alive. And when did you actually return to West Orange? Was it late 1945?
Yeah, right after the war.
Right after the war.
In 45.
So after August of 1945, after the treaty with Japan was signed aboard the battleship Missouri. Now, this, of course, is a drawing of you afloat in the ocean, and it was a Navy pilot who actually saw guys down in there, and he
Threw the life raft to us.
he dropped a life raft,
Right.
and had he not done that, you wouldn't be here
We
today.
wouldn't have been here today.
But it's interesting to note that in this life raft, you had your spoon and golf pin
Right.
that you have with us here today. Here's an actual article that appeared in the West Orange Chronicle, and in this article, you're actually giving praise to the pilot who dropped down with the life vest, and acknowledged that he essentially saved your life and the life of the other men with you that day. Now, you grew up in West Orange, and you also told me, despite having all this amazing history, that you used to play at the Lafayette Playground, and you remember Thomas Edison. You're probably one of the few West Orange residents around that actually has recollections of Thomas Edison, and he used to buy you and your friends ice
He used to
cream.
buy us ice cream on the corner of Park Avenue and Main Street. When Franco was the recreation guy there, and Joe Burns, he was the director of recreation. And Thomas Edison used to come out of the park, walk down the Main Street and Park Avenue, buy his consumers, then he goes to his laboratory and work.
So, did this happen on several occasions?
Yes, several times.
Now, did you have any sense of who Thomas Edison was?
Yeah, we knew who he was. In fact, in 1931, when he passed away, we were allowed in a funeral, and he was buried at at Rosedale on Watchung Avenue, right near the road up there. But he didn't stay there long because somebody, the government or somebody, wanted him out of there because somebody was going to dig his grave and find out what made him tick.
He has since been moved to
Since
the
moved, yeah.
to Glenmont Estate
Glenmont,
in
yeah.
Llewellyn Park. It's also worth mentioning that you began service with the town of West Orange before the war, but you have a total combined service of 53 and a half years working for the Department of Public Works.
Public Works.
Well, kamikaze means divine win in Japanese, but I think it's safe to say that there was a divine intervention that day in the South Pacific, and you have an absolutely amazing story. And we have the set dress today with an authentic World War II sailor shirt that actually belonged to my father during World War II. And in honor of Gary, we have an authentic M1 helmet from Vietnam, from the jungles of Vietnam. And finally, I'd like to mention that I'm wearing my father's 1939 ring from West Orange High School. He was a graduate. Sonny, it's been an honor talking to you. It's an honor to call you my friend. Thank you so much for coming in today, and I wish you well in your future endeavors. Thank you for joining us, Sonny.
I appreciate you asking me to come here, and I think more people should know what actually happened. And I think, I'm not sure, but we're the forgotten people.
Maybe forgotten by some, Sonny,
Yeah.
but remembered by most.
Well, most of it.
Thank you for joining us today, Sonny.
Thank you.
We often go about the rituals of our daily life in relative peace and safety, perhaps not giving much thought to those who keep us safe. But it's veterans like Gary and Sonny and countless hundreds of West Orange natives who do the job and have always answered the call to duty. If you stop by Veterans Memorial Park on Main Street, you can come face to face with those names who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Perhaps in their final moments, their thoughts turn to West Orange. They were real people who once walked our streets. They were our fathers and brothers, our husbands, our uncles and cousins. Remember them fondly and dearly, for they now rest in eternal peace. But in many ways, their mission will never be complete, because there will never be triumph without tragedy, success without failure, or victory without sacrifice. Yes, freedom may be free, but the dear price to pay will never come cheap. For the Downtown West Orange Alliance, this has been Discover West Orange. I'm Joe Fagan, and I'll see you on Main Street.